What up, nerds? My name is Leslie. Welcome to The Nerdy Narrative. This is a channel where I like to talk about all sorts of bookish related things, primarily in the science fiction, fantasy, horror, and manga genres. However, I do like to dip my toes in other genres here and there as well. In today's episode of fun, we're going to dip our toes into the classic pool. Yep, you heard right. I said classic. So stop digging in your ears and double checking what channel you're on. You are on The Nerdy Narrative, and I did say that I'm about to talk to you about a classic. I am going to be talking with you today my thoughts and opinions about Their Eyes Were Watching God, a beautiful classic story about Zora Neale Hurston. I was extremely fortunate to get a copy of the 75th anniversary edition of this book. It is so gorgeous. I just love the material that the cover is made from. I love the deckled edges that it has. It's just absolutely gorgeous. One I'm going to be very proud to have in my collection. This will be an annual reread for me, if not more. Every time I touch this book, guys, it makes me want to reread it. I keep it on my desk because I will literally, as I'm editing or I'm uploading or just rendering, whenever I have a moment, I will actually stop and pick this book up and just open it just to some random page just to read that page, because the beauty of this story is literally found on almost every page. Their Eyes Were Watching God is a beloved classic that was first published in 1937. This is a Southern story that is filled with beauty, wisdom, and humor. When I say Southern, I mean Southern Florida, of course, where I now currently reside. In fact, that really made this book fun for me because this takes place where I live. Yeah, every city that is mentioned in this story is an actual city here in Central Florida. I have actually had the opportunity to visit almost every one of these places, or I've at least seen the sign for the direction of where it is near me. And yet the only place I haven't actually visited in person yet is the Everglades. That just really added to my enjoyment for the story and made it fun, because it's like, oh, I know that place. Oh, I know that place too. It really doesn't take much, guys. Their Eyes Were Watching God, to me, is a love story, and it is an absolutely beautiful love story. The only other love story I would rate this next to is Redeeming Love, and you guys know how much I love Redeeming Love. I mean, you've only heard me talk about it till I'm blue in the face for over a year now. And when I say love story, I don't necessarily mean the romantic kind. I mean love for one's self. I've always been someone who believed that in order to love other people, you need to first love yourself. And in my opinion, this is what that book is. This book is Janie Crawford's journey of self-discovery, of learning to love herself and respecting herself to reach out and go for the life that she deserves to have. Janie Crawford, our main character, our voice for this love story of self-discovery, and we follow her from a little girl until she is in her early 40s. As she grows and the things that she experiences in those years, we see her amazing refusal to live in fear, sadness, hate, or allow herself to chase after futile and misguided romantic notions. You know, and I say that, but I say that and she learns from her mistakes. Just like everybody else in this world, you're going to make a few wrong choices before you learn what the right one is. I seriously doubt there's anybody anywhere on this entire earth who the first person they decided to fall for was the one that they were with from that point until the day that they died. I mean, that's just not very realistic. But before I get too deep off into talking about the book, I want to tell you a little bit more about the author. Zora Neale Hurston was not just an author. Zora Neale Hurston was the most successful and most significant Black woman writer for the first half of the 20th century. Let me let that sink in for a moment. Not only was she a novelist, She was also an anthropologist. It is extremely likely that Their Eyes Were Watching God was the most widely read and highly regarded book in the entire canon of African American heritage. I tell you these things about Zora Neale Hurston and this book to show you how important this book was. I'm here today to tell you why it still is. This novel is a novel of affirmation. It is one woman's search for herself and real love. It's the strength that she has to let her heart have its own voice to speak for itself. This story is an absolute masterpiece. It really is. I cannot tell you enough how beautiful this story is. And I tell you that because of where I am in my life. When I first read this story, I thought this is something that should be taught in school. But after thinking about it for a while, I take that back. If you read about this in high school or college, you haven't really experienced enough to understand, I feel, the full scope of what is happening with Janie's character development through this novel. I think you need to have some life experiences before you'll feel the full scope of what's happening in the story. Their Eyes Were Watching God is told in a call and response narrative. We have Janie who comes back to town, and everybody in the town, of course, is like, well, where has Miss Janie Crawford been? Where's her latest husband? What is she doing here? And Janie's not saying anything to anybody. Her best friend Phoebe comes over to her house and they sit down to talk. And at that point, Janie starts recounting her life to Phoebe. Through this call and response narrative, Janie tells Phoebe about her life. She starts with how she was raised by her grandmother, her first husband that she married because that was what her grandmother wanted, not Janie. That's what the grandmother wanted. And Janie did it because the grandmother worked herself to death trying to provide a better life for Janie. Well, as a result, she was not happy. She was not fulfilled. She felt lied to because her grandmother told her love would come with marriage, and that's not how that works. When Janie happens to meet a gentleman named Joe Starks, who is very vivacious, he was dressed to the nines, it was very easy for Joe to sweep Janie off her feet. Well, again, we get another bait and switch because Joe takes Janie to this town that was just for African American people. Joe wants to help build this community, and she is just caught up in his dream. Unfortunately, there's really not room for Janie in Joe's dream except for to be placed on this pedestal above everyone else. Time passes, events take place, and Janie meets Tea Cake. Tea Cake is a gentleman. He's about 12 or 13 years younger than Janie, but he just flirts with her, and they develop this slow rapport. There was a lot of talk because Tea Cake, the only thing he had was his name and the clothes that he was wearing. He was very poor. They all thought he was going after her for her money. And then there was the age difference. For some reason, it's okay for a man to date a woman that is much younger than him, but when the situation is reversed, for some reason, that's a big deal. But the beauty of the story is really comes in here in the end with the development of the relationship of Tea Cake and Janie. Their love is just beautiful. Everybody around them can see how much they love each other. Their love literally shone off the pages for one another. While Tea Cake was the poorest husband monetarily that Janie had, he is the only one who opened up her world and her heart irreversible ways. He literally gave her the world. And if you're someone who's ever met a few wrong ones before you found the right one, I think you would love this story. It is my favorite classic I've ever read. This is one that I will reread many, many times over the years. I picked this one up on my Kindle. I read it in 2 days. Once I finished it and stopped ugly crying at the end, I immediately got online and got a physical copy on its way to me. I had to have this book in printed form. It had to be in my collection. I just need to have this book in my hands the next time that I read it, which could be tomorrow. I mean, I'm not kidding you when I say I picked this book up and just look at the page, just read the pages. Zora Neale Hurston's prose, the beauty of her story, I am just in absolute awe of how beautiful. I mean, it was almost like poetry. It was so beautifully written. The sheer beauty of this woman learning to love herself, learning to open her heart up, and to just keep opening her heart up even though she had been hurt and just basically wasted for half her life, but she still kept stepping out and giving someone else the chance to make her happy and show her what real love and happiness actually look like. Like, there's literally no better experience in a book than that. There has been mention that the dialect was a little hard to read in physical form, and so there were a lot of people that suggested the audiobook. But in closing, this was a 5-star read for me. If Goodreads had 10 stars, it would have all 10. I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to read it again. I'm definitely going to be jumping off the deep end into more of Zora Neale Hurston's work. So I hope that you enjoyed this review. I hope you look forward to hearing more about her from me in the future. Guys, thank you so much for watching this today. This one was just really one from my heart. I originally was not going to review it. I was just reading it for just pure enjoyment, but it was just laying on my heart. I just wanted to tell you guys about it in case it's something you might be interested in reading. If you have read it, let me know down below. If you think you might want to read it and want somebody to read it with you, let me know down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me today. I hope your morning got off to a great start, and I hope the rest of your day is fantastic. I'll see you soon.